and welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Marvel Fan Theories podcast. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Katie, and we're two sisters and borderline obsessed Marvel fans who have been following the Marvel Cinematic Universe closely for years. And now we want to share our MCU discussions with you.
We chat about our own predictions and theories, plus some of our favorites from online, and our reactions to all of the Marvel content that's considered MCU canon, including the Disney Plus shows and the movies, as well as the Marvel news you need to know. All right, everyone. If you've been anywhere on the internet the last few days, you know that it's been San Diego Comic-Con in person for the first time since 2019, and Marvel was not going to let this opportunity pass them by. They showed up, they showed out, and Hall H was booming with announcements. So, we decided we're going to take it slow, walk you through the announcements, talk about what we're most excited about, and then also some predictions now that we have a better idea of what's coming in the Multiverse Saga. And to do that, we brought back special guest Davis for our first three-person episode since we all debated Spidey back in the end of 2021. So super happy to have him back. Thanks for being on the show, my friend.
Yeah, of course. Glad to be back. It's exciting. Yeah, we haven't done a three-person episode in a while, so I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you. Katie, why don't you start us off with a quick recap of all of the announcements that came out of Hall H this weekend?
Yeah, of course. I would be extremely happy to. So, we'll start with Phase 4 on the end of it. So, it was confirmed that She-Hulk and Black Panther, or the second Black Panther, will be the ending of Phase 4. So, that'll be the end of that. We are officially coming to the close of Phase 4. Seems a little crazy because Phase 4 really was only about a year and a half, about two, maybe not even 2 years, so about a year and a half, partially due to COVID. So, you know, it is what it is, but yeah, we're coming to a close with Phase 4. And then we got a pretty good glimpse at Phase 5, and I think about half of them probably weren't much of a surprise to people who have been around paying attention to some of the slates that were already announced before. I definitely think the entire second half was, so, oof. Oh yeah.
It's meaty. There's a lot in there.
Oh yeah.
A lot of content.
But to start off, we obviously have Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, which I know we've kind of been talking a lot about with the multiverse sort of stuff, so that one's going to be really important. Then we have Secret Invasion, which we've also been talking about a lot lately with Ms. Marvel being thrown in there. Not sure if she'll be there or not. We also have the third Guardians of the Galaxy, which will be coming out, and we've also been confirmed that'll be the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Echo, which we knew since Hawkeye. Loki Season 2, which we also knew was coming. We know that that's started to film. We have the Marvels, also has been kind of a conversation. But I think the second half is really where things got pretty funky. So Blade, which we know has been rumored and has been coming, but we have the confirmation now.
So excited.
Oh, I'm super hyped. We did know about Ironheart, so Ironheart will be making her appearance as well. Agatha House of Harkness has been changed to Agatha Coven of Chaos, so that's the update with that. I think this one took everybody by storm. Daredevil, of course, getting his new show on Disney Plus.
Very exciting.
Oh yeah, I think that was one of the ones that I actually outwardly gasped the most at. So
I'm so excited.
You can't see Taylor right now, but she's doing little excited jazz hands.
Yeah.
I am. I'm doing my happy dance while sitting down.
Oh, it's going to be great. And then, this one I'm actually personally looking forward to. The next Captain America 4, starring Sam Wilson as Captain America, will be making its debut. I know, on the big screen. And then Phase 5 will be wrapped up with the Thunderbolts, which I know we will be getting into a lot more in a second here. Taylor's now doing, aggressive dancing, fist-pumping things.
I'm just, so much of Phase 5 is so exciting. I think, to your point, Katie, I know we're going to quickly hop into Phase 6. I just have to say, as we're transitioning into it, there's a lot of surprises in Phase 5, but also a lot of things that we kind of thought were coming, and to get the confirmation and to know it's all actually coming is, amazing.
No, I agree. I mean, I think seeing the second half especially, it's always exciting to know that there's more coming.
Oh, yeah.
And I think these were a lot of things, to your point, that the characters were there. We've wanted those developments, and now we're finally there. So I agree. But let's get right into Phase 6, because there isn't a lot there. but yet there's a ton there. Obviously, so Phase 6, one of the first works. It's not noticeably the first, the actual first one, possibly. There's going to be one in front of it, but the second one that'll be out in Phase 6 is going to be, and I keep wanting to say, like, Phase 3, but I'm like, no, this is Phase 6. Every time I go to say 6, I gotta, like, think a little harder. Is going to be Fantastic Four, which I also don't think was a full surprise to people. That's been a big thing coming out. I'm actually a little more surprised it is a part of Phase 6 and not 5.
Yeah, I was going to expect it to come a little earlier.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially given what you're about to talk about.
Well, exactly. Because then, only 6 months apart, is going to be Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. And then following that up, which I think I gave us the biggest pat on the back ever, was Avengers: Secret Wars.
I was so proud of us. If you are new to the show, just PSA, real quick. We have an entire episode dedicated to Secret Wars. We called this after Multiverse of Madness. So I just want to say that because to Katie's point, pat us on the back. We knew what, I don't know that it's going to be the culminating point, probably is, but we called it, and we don't call major stuff like this often. You know, we'll get little details when we'll be like, hey, go us, but to actually have called what we think is the culminating point of Phase 6, or Phases 4 through 6, everybody just give us a shout out for a hot second, and also check out that episode if you haven't already.
60-second round of applause.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, even going back to Loki, we called Kang a long time ago.
Yeah,
it wasn't as present in our brains, and probably isn't as present to all the listeners since it was over a year ago with Loki, but we did discuss before he was obviously brought into Loki that we thought he was going to make his appearance. We thought he could be a really big player in this next round, and here he is. So I'm really excited. There were things I did not expect here.
Oh, for sure. Really quick, though, to round it out, there's a few more announcements that we don't want to miss. One, I don't know how you guys missed it because they gave out hats and I really want one, but they've officially called it the Multiverse Saga.
Yes.
We went from the Infinity Saga to the Multiverse Saga. It's here. We kind of thought the multiverse was going to take a back seat, but it turns out it is front and center for the next however many years. So get ready. I apparently need to go back to physics because we need to figure it out, so that's exciting. But also, just before the official Hall H panel, they did also announce some animated projects like Spider-Man Freshman Year, which does have Charlie Cox's Daredevil in it, confirmed he's voicing that character in that show, as well as X-Men 97 and Marvel's Zombies. Oh, and of course, What If Season 2. So there's a lot coming, and also that medium as well, which is super fun. I mean, I think we've made it pretty clear we're not huge animated people now that we've grown older, you know, as we definitely were as kids, but it's still cool. It's still going to be a fun way to kind of round out the MCU for sure.
Yeah, so honestly, I'm excited, and I think we should get right into our favorites. So for sure, let's get into that. Let's get into our movie first, since let's just say this first. I don't think we need to say that the last two Avengers movies, I don't even think we need to mention them. Why? Because we all know those are going to be the favorites. So,
oh my god, yeah.
Taking out them, all the other films that are slated in Phase 5 and Phase 6, what is your most anticipated projects?
Davis, you go first. You're the guest. We're going to try to be polite this time.
Wow, I'm honored. I guess the movie that I'm really looking forward to most would be the Thunderbolts. I really did like what, not to mention a DC movie, but what James Gunn did with the Suicide Squad, and of course, everyone knows the Thunderbolts are Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad. I am really looking forward to this movie, mainly because I feel like the anti-hero, they're not really heroes, but they're doing good aspect is where a bunch of the characters, which are, of course, not confirmed, but rumored to be in it, like Zemo, Yelena, John Walker, Abomination, Bucky, Taskmaster, Ghost, Red Guardian. I mean, there's so many characters that are not your typical heroes, but they will be forced to do good. I just think team-up movies, obviously, within the MCU have always been the more popular of the movies, but to see all these anti-heroes coming together in one movie to be like an alternate version almost of the Avengers is something that I think will be really cool because, you know, obviously there might be cameos, and this is way down the line from current MCU cast members, but these are going to be characters that really haven't had a ton of time to shine yet. They've really kind of taken a back seat in the projects they were in. You know, Yelena is, of course, overshadowed by Natasha. Zemo is kind of, you know, shadowed by the Falcon or I guess Captain America and Bucky. So I think it'll really give, and I just think the tone of this movie is what I'm really looking forward to. I'd imagine it's kind of going to be a darker, almost a la Captain America, the Winter Soldier type tone, and I think that's going to be really cool, especially if they throw elements of, you know, espionage or spy or something like that. So that's the movie that I'm looking forward to most, I'd say.
We're only going phases 5 and 6, right? Not the back half of 4, or what's left of 4.
Yeah, because that's kind of already been, I know we talked about that already in a previous episode.
Okay. It's so tough because every time I pick one, I'm like, but there's also this one. Thunderbolts is a good choice. I might have to go Blade or Fantastic Four. I know it's the third time doing the Fantastic Four, but they're going to be so important in Secret Wars, and I think they're probably the casting announcement that everybody is most excited for. And I'm sure we'll get into all of the things that Marvel didn't actually announce at Comic-Con, because even though we ate well, there were some things left off our plate. So I'm sure we'll get into that in a second, but Fantastic Four definitely shines a lot, and so does Blade for me. So those have to be my two.
I have to go with either Captain America, New World Order, or the Thunderbolts. For me, with Captain America, I love Sam, and I've always loved Sam, and I love Bucky. So I feel like Bucky's always been very much a Captain America, like, follower. Wherever Cap is, like, Bucky is. So I do expect to see a little bit of that in that film, but I also think it's Sam's time to shine. So I'm really excited to see him as Captain America and where he takes that form of the character. But those who know me, those who have listened to this podcast, know I am the anti-hero, like, lover beyond lover. Like, I don't think any of my favorites haven't been a villain at some point, or at least inherently not a good person. So I'm 100% here for the Thunderbolts. I actually, since I brought up Bucky, would love to see him here. I think it's finally his time to shine elsewhere as well, and I think that would be a good path. He's a natural leader, so I think giving him the opportunity to be a character and be explored more than just being Cap's friend, super important. But also, you know, Davis brought up Yelena and a couple others. The only one I won't like is John, because we don't like John.
Screw John.
Yeah, exactly. But I love Yelena. I think I think the grittiness of having these people who aren't inherently good people and maybe don't do things always conventionally because they don't live like Steve Rogers makes something so much more interesting, where you don't expect, I mean, even in the other Avengers, you can see them sometimes pull their punches when they're not necessarily fighting like androids or aliens, just because they're still not gonna sit there and try to kill somebody, versus I feel you have the darkness with some of the characters who will get brought into the Thunderbolts. So I am very much looking forward to that and looking forward to that darker team.
I think just to quickly add on to that, because I think it was confirmed that eventually when we do see Deadpool in the MCU and the third Deadpool movie, it will be rated R. Mm-hmm. So maybe the Thunderbolts will carry an R rating to go off what you were talking about, the darker tone of it. And I think that's something that Marvel can really excel at, because I think they always do a good balance of a movie like Thor: Love and Thunder, which was inherently very, you know, comedic and silly, but then you also have movies like The Winter Soldier, so I do think Marvel's able to do both. Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting if they want to bring an R rating to that movie.
No, I actually love that. Yeah.
I love that. Actually.
I mean, that's why I even said look at, and I use Bucky and Yelena as examples because they're my favorite and I know the most about them, but I mean, they're trained assassins. At the end of the day, they don't do things conventionally. So I think bringing in that little bit of darkness, and even if they do decide to do the R rating, I'd be 100% here for it. But let's get into shows, because there's a lot of shows coming out in Phase 5 too. Now, we have not a single show yet announced for Phase 6, which is interesting, but we do have a lot coming in Phase 5, so what's the one that you guys are looking forward to most? Davis, go.
All right, first again. I think out of all of them, I think I'm most excited for Secret Invasion, just because it's been a while since we... And I guess I'm also kind of a little biased, because I would say, I keep alluding back to it, but Captain America the Winter Soldier is one of my favorite MCU films, probably first or second.
As it should be.
All right, so we agree there.
I think that might be the first thing you two have ever agreed on in all the time that I've known the two of you.
That's probably true. But yeah, I just love the tone, the grittiness, the espionage themes. I just think it was such a well-made movie. So going back to, I guess, former agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because we don't really know what S.H.I.E.L.D.'s up to these days, but with Nick Fury and Maria Hill, and I think tossing in the Skrulls and, you know... I'm not quite sure where they're going to go with the show, but it would be interesting to see if, like, there's a big revelation that, like, oh, this character's been a Skrull the whole entire time, or something like that. So I think that's what I'm most excited for, just to see, okay, I'm sure, to me, I think Secret Invasion's going to have some of the more jaw-dropping plot twists involved than the other shows. And again, we don't really know much about Echo. Oh, what was the other one? Agatha, is it House of Harkness? Did they change it to that?
Coven of Chaos is the new one.
Coven of Chaos. Okay. But yeah, so I say Secret Invasion just because I think there's so many fun things they can do, and maybe we'll see how previous movies played out, but from the perspective of a Skrull, if they just so happen to be a character from one of our favorite movies. So I'd say, yeah, that would be the show I'm looking forward to most.
That's a good one. I have to say, I was reading an article just before we got on, and apparently they showed a trailer footage for Secret Invasion for only those in the hall. Also, PSA, guys, we're trying to get in the hall next year, so hopefully we'll be coming live next year.
Manifested. We're manifesting.
Yes. All of us in this community, we're going to make it happen. But anyway, so they showed this footage, and one of the articles I was reading kind of went through it, what they showed, and I guess what's going to happen is there is a faction of Skrulls, as happens in the comics, who does kind of invade, and so Talos, the guy from Captain Marvel, I'm terrible with pronunciation, he is working with Nick Fury to kind of stop them, so I definitely, to your point, Davis, think we're going to get those crazy reveals of, like, characters, like, that we've been following, where we have to be like, oh crap, how long have you not been you? Like, it's gonna be like so
Spider-Man
fun.
Far From Home level kind of what the heck.
Yeah, like, that Mysterio reveal, like, even though we all kind of knew who he was, like, you almost, like, thought he was gonna be a good guy. Like, they set it up so convincingly that even someone who loved Spider-Man growing up as a kid and knows so much about it was like, are they gonna completely, like, make him a good guy?
Oh, no, I was fully talking about Nick and Maria being Skrulls, because that's more accurate to that.
Well, yeah, but I was also thinking, like, the whole idea of, like, illusion, right? Like, you're seeing one thing, but the actuality or the reality is a complete other thing. So, like, that's where I was going with that. But anyway, so that's just a little bit of context there, because you, like, sparked that in me when you said your piece. But I think for me, it's going to be no surprise. It's Daredevil. Now, I know you guys have heard me say on many occasions that I have tried Daredevil in the past. A little too gory for me. So I tried it again because after Charlie Cox was in No Way Home, I was like, well, he's in it now. Like, I have to know this background. So I closed my eyes during the really gory part and hid behind my hands like a 5-year-old. And now I'm, like, obsessed with Daredevil. I'm in seasons 2 out of 3 because I'm trying to get my way into the Defenders. I'm currently on Iron Fist. So I just love the character. I think Charlie Cox has done an amazing job. And I am so excited to see him again. D'Onofrio is amazing as Kingpin, and I'm just so excited.
There's been multiple times where Taylor's texted me saying, you gotta watch Daredevil, so I'm probably get around to it. I mean, Andy showed up at the end of the She-Hulk trailer, so he's going to be in a lot more projects. We gotta know who he is. So if you haven't seen it, I guess you got to.
Yeah.
He's also going to be an Echo. So, like, Charlie Cox is,
both
like...
make a lot of sense, too.
Yeah. And Charlie Cox is, like, up there with Wong in terms of, like, number of projects. So, like, let's go. It's the years of Charlie Cox!
Wong's the glue of Phase 4 and maybe potentially Phase 5.
Yeah. My man Wong's been everywhere. But I'm actually kind of glad you guys said those, because I like when we all tend to pick something different just so we can kind of make our justifications and put more out there. This might come as a surprise, but I'm actually most looking forward to Loki season 2.
What? Oh my god,
I kind of forgot about Loki season 2.
I knew Taylor would not. Okay.
My sense of reality is so warped.
Hear me out. So, for those of you who know, Loki was always my favorite up until the Loki series. And then well, not like my favorite, Bucky was always my man, but he was like one of my favorites. But the Loki series to me just like killed him. Like it was worse than actually watching him die 4 times. Like it was character just slaughter. So I'm actually really looking forward to season 2 to see what comes from it. I want to know if they because Marvel's very good at listening to the fans. So I want to know if they really got into some of those conversations that people were complaining. And I say complaining, but I think maybe there's probably a better word. Because I think it's almost criticism, but you still need it at times. And I think there was a lot of criticism to certain parts of Loki. And especially now that we've kind of gotten a little further into the multiverse and some of the things that tie into that. And even time travel, since we had a moment in Miss Marvel that we had some time travel. I want to kind of see now what they do with the second season of Loki to make up for some of that. Because I think it's still going to be a really informative show. And I mean, we've seen him now. We've seen some behind the scenes sets, obviously, of him in character with Owen Wilson again, which is really
McDonald's for some reason.
Because naturally, why wouldn't they be? I don't know. But I think, it'll be really interesting to me to kind of see where they bring the series now. Because I think where we thought season 1 ended, we could see a very clear path for season 2. And I don't see that right now. So I'm really intrigued, and I actually, ironically, am most looking forward to seeing what comes from that part of the show. Will I like it? Who knows? Because I didn't like the first season. But I am intrigued the most.
Of course you didn't like the first season. You drag it every chance
and I'm going to continue. But I will say that I am looking forward to seeing the second season of Loki the most and seeing what they do with it.
Yeah, it's like if you're going to put us through all that pain and sadness, there's got to be some sort of payoff.
I can't believe we're 2 for 2 tonight. Like,
oh my god, this is unprecedented territory. Everything I thought I knew about the world has been turned upside down in the few minutes that we've been on the phone together, and I'm just gonna need to go sit in my bed for the rest of the evening and try to reorient my view of the world.
I think I should just replace
thanks, guys,
Taylor
for this.
from now on. Right? Can we agree?
I mean,
yeah. I'm just kidding. Come on.
You know what? You can be friends with Caitlin. I think our friendship is revoked.
Oh, no, not again.
It's not the first time we've done this.
It's probably like the 5th or 6th.
Dang.
Yeah, it's happened a few times. Good times. Anyway, moving on. One thing I did want to talk about quickly are some of the properties that Marvel actually didn't talk about, or some of the information that they didn't talk about or give us during Comic-Con. I know there were some rumors swirling before the big panel on, I think it was Saturday, that, they were gonna save all their big announcements for D23 and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think they really did a good job at Comic-Con. They gave us a lot of info. But, they didn't give, as we alluded to before, cast for the Fantastic Four, which I think a lot of people were really looking forward to. One of the big things that a lot of people were talking about after this weekend was the lack of anything related to Armor Wars on the slate.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the creators has actually come out, he posted on Instagram and was like, no, we're still happening, but for whatever reason, it's not on there. So that's super interesting. But yeah, just wanted to point a couple of those things out that, we kind of knew were on the horizon, but somehow got skipped over.
Well, I also know a lot of people, and I know this because I run in that circle as well, were really hoping to have a little bit of an announcement regarding the Scarlet Witch after MOM.
Yep.
Well, and I think that's pretty fair because we all know she didn't die. That's not how you kill the Scarlet Witch.
Mm-hmm.
No body, no death.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but she has too many storylines that are really prominent in the comics to not have her continue.
Like the X-Men, which also were left out of this weekend.
Yes, which is why I very much believe we'll be getting that at the D23 because they kind of run the same circle. And I think introducing the mutants is a different type of mind-blowing thing, and I think Wanda's very much going to be a big aspect to that as well, so I really do think we'll still see something for the Scarlet Witch. I'm not entirely surprised we didn't get it right now, because they announced the 2 big Avengers movies at the end of Phase 6, so I wouldn't be surprised if some of those holes really could be a Scarlet Witch film, a mutant-related film or TV show, something that brings them in. I wouldn't be shocked at all. Especially if you're going to have Secret Wars, you're going to want to have the mutants in it.
All right, and then one of the last things that I want to talk about before we go into predictions is some of the trailers we got.
Oh, gosh.
Now, let's talk about the big one. Black Panther Wakanda Forever. One, first thought, it was so beautiful, I don't even know what to say. 2, that movie is going to wreck me in ways that I don't know I am prepared for.
By far, the best trailer Marvel's ever done,
yes,
in my opinion. They showed nothing really about the plot,
no,
but I've never been more excited for a Marvel project in my life.
Flawless. Absolutely flawless. Ryan Coogler is a genius.
And honestly, I'm extremely excited, but I'm going to be completely upfront. I think I was able to live in such a bubble since Chadwick's passing, especially with the MCU-related projects, because there hasn't been any Black Panther projects that have come out after Endgame, with the exception of What If, but that had already been, obviously done prior. So I think I was very much able to avoid having to accept that, he wasn't going to be playing the Black Panther, and that who knew where the Black Panther as a character and superhero was going to be. And now I feel like I really quickly have to accept that, because it's only like 3 months away. And I know even the cast, if you watched any of the film from the Comic-Con, they were very emotional when the trailer came out. You could tell they were all hugging each other, and some were crying. So I'm not ready, because I'm also not ready for the MCU to have to address his death.
Yeah. I distinctly remember the day that he died. I remember getting the text from my friend thinking she was lying to me.
I found out about Chadwick's death from Taylor.
So did I.
She texted me all caps, and I was so confused.
I ran into Caitlin's room sobbing hysterically. Like, literally having, I couldn't breathe. 1, because I ran upstairs, but 2, because I was just, so upset, and, for, days after, I would literally just be somewhere or be doing something and just start crying. And to Katie's point, I think the only way I've been able to get through it is because I'm no, everything's fine. I am deep in denial, and, I'll see stuff online, I'm I know logically he's gone, but to actually see that on film is going to be incredibly difficult. I'm gonna bring 4 boxes of tissues. I'm gonna sob loudly. It's gonna be a lot. But to Davis's point, I've not been more excited for anything in a long time like this, so...
No, it was a beautiful trailer. I'm very excited to go back to Wakanda.
Yes.
Especially because I think the last time, the last time we were in Wakanda was pure carnage. We were at war with Thanos.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to go back to some of the characters we've fallen in love with and really just immerse ourselves back into that culture. I truly believe Black Panther is still one of the best superhero films to ever come out.
Absolutely. Top tier.
Even just for the MCU and I say culturally, as far as everywhere, really culturally, it was such a big moment. I don't think anybody forgets Black Panther coming out, because it impacted people by either how the movie impacted you or even the soundtrack. I knew so many people who just listened to the soundtrack and loved it through that. So I just think it had such an impact, and it was such a different time than where we are now, 5 years later? So, and in real life, let alone, in the MCU. So I'm excited to go back.
Yeah. Black Panther was a cultural moment. Those don't happen. We're how many 20-something movies into the MCU? 1 cultural moment out of 27. Sure, there have been, Endgame and Infinity War were huge, and people were going to theaters en masse, but, the actual cultural impact nothing has had the same impact that Black Panther had, so it's gonna be tough, but it's gonna be a good one, and I'm so excited.
I mean, even just going off of that, I feel like future history books, they probably won't write about Marvel movies that often, but it will be future historical textbooks that, you know, kids will be reading in middle school and high school will mention Black Panther.
Yeah.
It's intertwined in cinematic history, but it's also, like we've said, intertwined in society as a whole. So I don't think I'm prepared for seeing In Memory of Chadwick Boseman at the very end before the credits roll. So we'll just ignore it for now.
Yeah.
Yep. Switching gears to something decidedly less sad. We also got a new updated trailer for She-Hulk. This show looks so fun. She's gonna be hilarious. She's such a good foil for Bruce, who is so serious. We're gonna come back to you guys in like 2 weeks with our predictions, which is crazy to think that it's time for that already, but super excited for that one. And we also got a look at I Am Groot.
Oh, I love Groot.
I don't even know what to say. He's just so adorable. I mean, he farts a leaf in the trailer.
And
like,
then saves
he's just so cute.
a whole village and feeds them.
Yeah, I mean, it's just gonna be great. But that's it in terms of trailers. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, maybe. The moment we have to say, what predictions do you now have? Could be an adjustment on an old prediction. Coming out of Comic-Con, knowing now what we know, and don't know from what's coming from D23. In this moment, what are you going to say?
Okay. I have really random things just from the properties that have been released. For one, I almost wonder if them giving time to Agatha means that we could actually eventually see her in a Thunderbolts.
Interesting.
Yeah. I didn't think about it initially, but now that we have confirmation of Thunderbolts, I'm curious if that will be kind of something we see from her. I think it'll be an interesting moment. I mean, she's the opposite kind of Wanda, so I think it could be intriguing. Another one that I've been kind of putting together is we don't really have like an Avengers team as of right now. We are looking at this slate, and I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm still not really seeing a team. I'm seeing a lot of one-offs. I'm seeing, okay, the Marvels is a team of 3, fine. But I'm not really seeing a lot of team-ups and a lot that would make sense to come together naturally. So I almost wonder how big of an impact Thunderbolts could actually have. And part of me, and this is just almost a want, maybe more than a theory, but I'll put it out there. Part of me is almost intrigued to know if we're going to almost flip-flop where we were at in phases 1 through 3. And the Thunderbolts, who are the anti-heroes, will be the prominent Avengers for the next phases, while some of the actual Avengers are now going to be they won't be anti-heroes, of course, by no means, but might be more of those assisting players that are still going to be there, but not necessarily teammates.
Yeah, I mean, that would be pretty cool, honestly.
That's bold.
Yeah.
Because I think the ex machina of these Marvel movies is a character swooping in at the last moment to save the day, so maybe that's, a Sam Wilson, a Bucky Barnes, and, the Thunderbolts are the main Avengers team. I mean, I would personally really love that, to be honest.
And I mean, I only say that because there are a lot of gaps in the timeline still. There are still plenty of time, but I personally don't see an Avengers team-up starting in the Kang Dynasty film. I think that's weird. I still think there needs to be a slight introduction to it, just because I think that was a lot of people's complaints with Endgame, sort of, too, is that there were just a bunch of, all our heroes came together, and it was that amazing moment, but also, when you really looked at it, it was kind of why did, half these people don't know why they're fighting. They don't know each other, they're just, here, and I know that was a complaint even then with Tony's funeral. Everybody was like, well, why are half these people here? They didn't know or like him, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very polarizing figure.
Yeah, but that's why I kind of wonder, I don't see them pulling all the Avengers together in the Kang Dynasty film. I don't, personally. But then, again, there could be another Avengers film that comes prior, and it's just not slated yet.
Well, to that point, to kind of build off of that, I'm picturing Kang Dynasty being the Infinity War to Secret Wars Endgame.
Yes.
In the sense that, they kind of connected. So I'm guessing the Avengers Kang Dynasty will be huge, have a huge cliffhanger and will lead directly into Secret Wars. So I'm wondering, in that regard, Infinity War was also separated, because we had the Guardians of the Galaxy with Iron Man and Spidey up on Titan, and then you had the team back down on Earth, and then Thor was off doing his own thing.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if, kind of like what you were saying, is like, if you're not quite seeing a team come together, that maybe the Kang Dynasty will be exactly that, like kind of what we saw in Infinity War, where it's kind of disjointed for a lot of it, but they all come together towards the end, which leads directly into Secret Wars.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, too, that actually sparked two things in me. I think, one, we're starting to see maybe a few different, combinations. Like, we know, for example, that, like, Sam knows Ant-Man, and, like, that's, a connection. And we know that Shang-Chi knows Bruce and Captain Marvel, who then brings in Monica and Ms. Marvel. And so, like, there are certain people who are connected to other people. It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So, like, you can connect, Shang-Chi to Kamala, even though we all have our theories about how that actually connects. But you can connect them through, the other characters, or even Scott to Kamala, even though that sort of has its own connection as well. But, like, so there's, I think, a way to do it.
I just don't think it would mean as much if they did it that way. Just because, and I'll throw this out there for the sake, just to back up my side of the argument, although I'm open always to listen to the other side, I think why Infinity War worked the way it did too was because we were so married to these characters. And I'm not saying we're not married to the ones we have now, but I mean, even looking at, Echo, new character. Ironheart, new character. Blade, for the MCU, will be a new character. Miss Marvel, new character. We had a lot of, you brought up Shang-Chi, a lot of new characters that haven't had 10 years to have us fully fall in love with them the way we were, even with the OG6, which were so pivotal in Infinity War. And we could say what we wish, but at the end of the day, we were all there seeing the OG6 and what they were doing. They were still the pivotal parts of the story, and we saw that then play out in Endgame too. So I just think bringing them all together Infinity War style for the first time in the Kang Dynasty feels just like that could be a little weird. I feel like it would just not mesh the same way, as we aren't as married to certain characters quite yet.
That's fair. I do want to point out, though, Davis, you mentioned how Kang Dynasty is likely going to feed right into Secret Wars, the same way that Infinity War fed into Endgame. Think about how we had to wait a year. I think that's one of those examples where Marvel learned their lesson, because there was so much hype after Infinity War. Like, people were going, like, nuts off the wall, right? Because we all remember what that was like. But then you have that excitement, and then randomly Captain Marvel comes out.
Not the best movie.
And then they were like, here, have a walnut.
I know, they were like, you want a chocolate cake? Here's a walnut.
Here's air.
But anyway.
Flavored air.
Yeah, honestly. No, nothing against Carol Danvers, but, like, in comparison to what we all really wanted to come out, like, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
But that's also probably why we feel that way about her. Anyway, I think it's just one of those examples where they learn their lesson, where they're like, maybe we shouldn't let the fan base lose all their enthusiasm for this movie. Let's get them really, really hyped, give them a little bit of time to cool off, and then, like, explode.
Yeah.
Like, let's do it. So, I think that's definitely true. One, actually, theory coming out of that, too, is someone who I follow online was saying he thought that, and you've said this too, actually, that the Secret Wars is actually a great way to bring in the mutants.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to think about them existing in 616. I know, Kamala's a mutant now, and we've, hinted at it with Wanda, but it's kind of tough. It's tough to bring in something that big into a universe that is this developed, right? So it could be interesting to use Secret Wars and mutants coming in from another universe to kind of grease the skids.
Well, and especially if they don't necessarily want to do origins, I think it would be a good way to kind of almost cut right into a story, and you don't really need to give the additional background, because this is kind of like Fantastic Four, too, with the debate of, are they going to do this as an origin or not, considering it will now be the third time. So,
like Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we might see a Spider-Man style thing if they do bring them in Secret Wars, and just kind of pop us right into their story and bring them right in without really the background that we got, you know, in the X-Men that came out in the early 2000s and had, you know, all the OGs in it, I imagine that we're going to see that play out a little differently. I don't really think we're going to see origins.
There's one other thing I want to say about Secret Wars that I've been circulating online, and I know we talked about this in our episode, but I just want to make something really clear. A lot of people have been saying, oh, now that we're getting Secret Wars, like, Toby and Andrew are definitely coming back. Guys, that's not what Secret Wars is. It's not a complete and utter crash of the multiverse. It's two specific universes coming together. So in this instance, with Secret Wars, we would either see Toby's universe or Andrew's universe. If it is their universe that we hit with. Yeah. Exactly. It would have to be the exact right universe for them to be the one. It's the ultimate universe in the comics, is the one that, you know, collides with 616. So let's just dispel that myth right now. Unless they decide to play some major changes, to do some fan service, which I'm not going to say is right or wrong, whatever. That's not what this is, guys. It's one specific universe crashing into our universe, not many universes coming together. That's why if they're going to do the mutants, it's not going to be, to your point, the OGs from the early 2000s, because that would mean those are the only X-Men we're ever going to get, ever, if that's how they're bringing them in. It's got to be the new cast, whoever it is. So, just wanted to put that out there to dispel any myths. Please go back to that episode, because we talk about it at length, exactly what Secret Wars is, so that you guys have a good foundation for how we're going to build up to it.
Yeah, and I mean, totally ignore the last, 10 minutes where we talk about our predictions about Secret Wars, because we now are confirmed with Secret Wars, and we didn't know that at the time. But the entire rest of the episode is us talking about why we thought Secret Wars was coming, which is definitely good context from where we are now, and also, to Taylor's point, what it is. So definitely make sure you guys go check that out if you have any questions.
One of the kind of a prediction and theory that I like the most I was reading up on Ironheart, because to be quite honest, I didn't know a bunch about Riri Williams. So I wanted to kind of look up the history behind her and her character. And I thought
Who's in the Black Panther trailer, by the way. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to say she's in the Black Panther trailer. So I think she hugs Shuri. I don't know. They have an interaction in the trailer. It might be a hug, might be a fist bump. I don't remember what it is, but they interact. So we've seen Riri for the first time on film, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and especially there is a shot in the trailer where it's literally a character hammering a heart out of metal. So it's like, come on. I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, so I was reading up on her, and there is a storyline. Well, basically her whole storyline is she becomes kind of an Iron Man-like character, but her mentor is an AI version of Tony Stark. So yes, Tony Stark's dead, but her mentor is an AI version. So I'm hoping, I don't know if this is really a prediction or just a conspiracy theory, that maybe Robert Downey Jr. will come back at some point, whether that's in... I mean, I don't know how much of Ironheart and Riri we'll see in Black Panther, if she's just going to be kind of what the Guardians of the Galaxy were in the most recent Thor movie, where they're kind of there for the first 15 minutes or so, and then they kind of go off and do their own thing. So I would love to see Robert come back.
Or Black Panther in Civil War.
Exactly. So maybe it'll just be a brief introduction. But then also, Black Panther was played a pretty key part in Civil War.
Yeah, I think that was a bad argument.
No, I'm just saying they could use it as an introduction the same way they introduced Spider-Man and Black Panther in Civil War. Yeah, exactly. That was what I meant, not necessarily level of involvement, but the idea of introducing that character.
Yeah, that's how I interpreted it. Yeah, that's what I understood. But it's I think it kind of sounds like from interviews, Chris Evans would only come back to be Captain America if things were pretty special. But I'm wondering if Robert Downey Jr. would ever come back, and if he does, maybe he'll come back as an AI to kind of help out Riri. So that's kind of a prediction or / conspiracy theory.
We'll take it.
But as far as a bigger prediction, I think coming out of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, James Gunn has said that it is pretty much the conclusion of the Guardians of the Galaxy storyline that's been established so far. So I'm wondering what that means. But hopefully this isn't the case, but I have a feeling a couple, I say a couple, which hurts me, but a couple of our favorite characters from the Guardians probably will not make it out of the third movie. So whether that's, one or two surviving characters, maybe they'll get pulled from that and plopped down into a new Avengers team. Because we said earlier that we're not quite sure what are the characters that make up this lineup, this new Avengers team. So I'm predicting that maybe whatever characters kind of survive the third Guardians of the Galaxy movie will be pulled and put into the main team, or at least one of the main teams in the Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. So that's kind of what I'm predicting so I think whatever surviving members, they'll be key members of whatever Avengers team or teams are formed in the Phase 6 Avengers movie.
I have a kind of wild one for you guys.
More wild than mine?
I don't know. I don't actually remember yours. It feels like it was a long time ago. We were talking about the connective glue between the Avengers. We talked about how there's these, 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, whatever, numbers. But here's one thing that connects a lot of them. They're all mentors to younger Avengers. And one of the things that was glaringly missing from the slate is a Young Avengers team up, because we now have Cassie Lang in her suit in the Ant-Man and Quantumania poster. So we have confirmation that she's coming as, I think it's Stinger. So I guess I'm wondering if the kids coming together brings their mentors together. So will we see Kate bringing in Hawkeye, and we haven't seen really, is it Elijah?
I think so.
Who is Patriot?
Mm-hmm.
Elijah, yeah. We haven't seen Elijah and Sam interact yet, but that's probably going to be, a mentor-mentee relationship. So maybe Elijah brings in Sam. We have the twins. Maybe, Wanda comes back. Like, they all kind of have their adult Avenger.
Yeah.
Could that be a thing? I don't know. Like I said, it's a little out of left field, but I kind of like it.
No, I quite like that for the sake of, yeah, and we said a long time ago when they first started forming some of the Young Avengers that they were not going to be the next Avengers.
Right.
Because there were not going to be a bunch of fans who, keep in mind, most of the fans have been here since day one. And even if you haven't been, I haven't been. I was 7 years old when the first film came out. But for those who have been here the longest, every year we get older too. And I think a lot of their fan base is continuing to get older. So having a group of teenagers going around saving the world, like, I'm sorry, but Kid Loki, I was glad when he was gone. Like, I just think that they weren't going to really hold an audience as the main Avengers. So I actually quite like kind of using them as that anchor point to pull them all in. And that, to me, would make sense that the Young Avengers would be something we'll see as one of those projects that's unmarked prior to the Kang Dynasty. And then that would be a really good way to bring, to your point, the people who are mentoring them or the people who have been helping them.
Or are their parents.
Yeah. But also, you actually brought up the twins, and that made me think...
Oh, they're dead, kind of, sort of.
Well, I wasn't going there, but, nothing on here is something... No, you're right, but that I was going a completely different direction. Makes me think of White Vision. And he's still out there and a very prominent factor, so I'm actually really intrigued because I don't see him yet fitting into any of these projects.
It's gotta be the unnamed Scarlet Witch. Or I could maybe see Coven of Chaos because he has a connection to Agatha.
But I'm pretty sure that's based off of her, background. So I wouldn't see him as prominently there.
No, but could it be an end credit scene? I'm just trying to think, who has he had interactions with in the MCU?
Yeah.
I mean, technically, because he has old Vision's memories, it's everyone, but, actually thinking of, what happened in WandaVision, who would he actually remember from, his actual memory, not just Vision's memory?
Well, I have a theory about him, and I think I actually had this theory back with WandaVision before this was even a podcast, and I might have a blog post that says this.
She's like, can I find it in writing? Real questions.
I know, I'm like, I might have it. But I actually almost wonder if he'll show up in Black Panther because a prominent last bit of his memory will be Wakanda.
That's true.
He might go in search of answers.
And I mean, he knows Shuri was helping him.
Yeah.
Because he still, to your point, has those memories, whether he knows he has feelings towards them or not. He knows he was getting assistance from somebody who is very skilled.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if anybody can help him. And I'm not saying he might stay White Vision, might not be. If he stays White Vision, I see him being a Thunderbolt.
Yeah, actually.
So I think, I'll look for the receipt, and I'll link it in the blog post if I can find it. But I do actually think that if he shows up anywhere, I would actually think it would be there. But that would be an end credit.
That makes sense to me. And I think he was kind of missing from Multiverse of Madness. I think some people were like, why was White Vision not in this?
Yeah.
So maybe they are saving it for a project like Thunderbolt.
Yeah.
All right, well, I am all good on Comic-Con thoughts and reactions. How are you guys feeling? I'm getting a thumbs up from Kate. Davis, I can't see your face, so you have to verbalize your thoughts.
I am giving 2 thumbs up, actually.
Cool. So we're getting a play-by-play on what's happening on Davis's screen, which for me is an upside-down exclamation point. Cool.
I can see him, so we're good.
We're having some technical difficulties here today. All right, everyone. We hope you enjoyed our coverage of all the news coming out of Comic-Con. If you're excited to hear us talk about all of these upcoming properties, because we're going to be covering not 1, not 2, but all of them, you should definitely subscribe to the show. If you're already subscribing to the show and you're a fan, please give us a rating or a review. Just lets us know that, hey, I'm out here, I'm listening, and you guys are okay. And that's, just some validation that we'd like to hear every once in a while. You can also check out our blog, which we've mentioned a couple of times, has some extra context, has some extra predictions, some receipts for Katie. So, good stuff on there. You should definitely check that out as well. That is linked in the show notes. Also linked in the show notes is our Spotify page, which has playlists for each of the individual shows, a playlist relating to all of our coverage relating to movies, and one ginormous, 6-hour playlist that has all of the songs in the MCU shows and movies that are available on Spotify.
Make sure you guys are also following our Twitter at Let's Talk MFT. We have all the blog and podcast episodes linked up on there as soon as they come out, so you can find them all there, along with news and theories that we share or we are resharing from other people. So obviously this was a huge weekend. We have a lot of information and updates that we've been seeing shared on our page from Comic-Con. So definitely make sure you guys are following that. And then I just want to give a thank you to Davis for once again guesting on here. We appreciate it.
Always happy.
Yeah, of course. And we're always happy to have you. And then as far as us, give it, 2 weeks? And we will be doing our She-Hulk predictions. And then from there on, we will be covering She-Hulk on a weekly basis as each episode comes out. So don't forget to keep up with all that content. Keep up with everything that just came out of Comic-Con, because Marvel just blew your mind. So let's talk about it.